I'm Olivia, and I never thought my life with Matthew, the man I've loved through every storm, would lead me to a night so dark it would change everything. Our cozy suburban home, once a haven of laughter, now feels like a cage, suffocating under secrets whispered in late-night calls and shadows that linger in his worried eyes. I've watched him pace, seen the desperation carve lines into his face, and felt the weight of a burden he won't share. But tonight, as we stepped into a hidden world of cigar smoke and dangerous men, I realized I might be the key to saving us, or breaking us forever. What did I do in that crimson-lit room that left my heart pounding with both shame and a strange, forbidden thrill? There's a certain stillness in the air tonight, a heavy kind of quiet that seems to press against the walls of our little apartment, like it's waiting for something to break. I'm Olivia, 33 years old, and I've spent the last few years building a life with Matthew, my husband, who's just 2 years older than me. We've always been a team, two souls tangled up in each other, navigating the world hand in hand. But lately, there's a shadow over us, a weight that neither of us can shake off, no matter how tightly we cling to one another. I can feel it in the way the silence stretches between us, in the way our once easy laughter has turned into strained smiles. Our home is a small, cozy place tucked away in a quiet suburban neighborhood where the streets are lined with modest houses and the hum of crickets fills the evening air. Inside, though, it's like a storm is brewing. The living room, with its mismatched furniture and faded curtains, feels smaller these days, almost suffocating. The tension is a living thing, pacing alongside Matthew as he moves restlessly across the hardwood floor late at night. I watch him from the doorway sometimes, his broad shoulders hunched, his kind face carved with lines of worry that weren't there a year ago. He's always been impulsive, my Matthew, acting on instinct more than logic. But there's something different about this. Something desperate. I see it in the way his hazel eyes dart to the window as if he's expecting someone, or something, to show up unannounced. I don't know the full story yet, and that's what gnaws at me. There are hints, though. Late-night phone calls he takes in hushed tones, stepping out onto the balcony with the door slid shut behind him. I hear fragments of urgent whispers, words like deadline and oh, slipping through the cracks before he cuts himself off. I don't push him, not yet. Instead, I try to be his anchor. I brew chamomile tea in our chipped mugs, the steam curling up like a fragile hope, and I sit beside him, murmuring that we'll get through whatever this is. But my words feel hollow, even to me. They don't reach the storm inside him. They don't stop his restless pacing, or the way his jaw clenches when he thinks I'm not looking. There's a memory that keeps replaying in my mind, one from just a few nights ago. We were on our worn-out couch, the springs creaking under us, the fabric frayed at the edges from years of use. Matthew's hand was in mine, his grip so tight it almost hurt, his fingers trembling as if they were trying to hold on to more than just me. He looked into my eyes, his voice low and raw, promising me he'd find a way out of this mess. "I'll fix it, Liv," he said, using the nickname only he calls me. "I swear, I'll make it right." But there I'm standing at the stove, the sizzle of marinara sauce bubbling in the pan as I stir it with a wooden spoon, the rich, tangy aroma of tomatoes and garlic wafting through our tiny kitchen. It's a familiar ritual, cooking spaghetti for dinner, a small act of normalcy in a life that's felt anything but lately. The steam rises, curling around me like a comforting veil, but it can't quite mask the undercurrent of tension that's been lingering in our apartment for weeks. I glance at the clock, 6:47 p.m., and wonder if Matthew will be late again, caught up in whatever storm he's been battling on his own. Then I hear the front door creak open, the familiar jingle of his keys hitting the bowl on the entry table. My heart gives a little jump, not just from relief, but from the way his presence always seems to shift the air in the room. I turn to see him step into the kitchen, his dark hair a mess, strands falling over his forehead as if he's run his hands through it one too many times. His tie hangs loose around his neck, the top button of his shirt undone. But there's something different tonight. A faint spark in his hazel eyes, a flicker of something I haven't seen in months. Hope, maybe. It's subtle, but it's there, and it stops me cold, the spoon hovering over the pot. "Hey, Liv," he says, his voice softer than usual, almost careful. He drops his bag by the door and crosses the small space to me, his steps deliberate. I turn off the burner, the sauce simmering down to a quiet murmur, and face him fully. Before I can ask how his day was, he gestures to our tiny dining table, barely big enough for the two of us, the plates still empty and waiting. "Can we sit for a minute? I need to talk to you." My stomach twists, a mix of curiosity and dread knotting together as I nod and follow him over. We sit across from each other, the silence between us heavier than the smell of dinner still lingering in the air. I study his face, the way his jaw is set but not clenched for once, the way his fingers tap lightly on the table, restless but not frantic. "What's going on?" I ask, my voice quieter than I mean it to be, my heart picking up speed like it's bracing for impact. He leans forward, his eyes locking with mine, intense in a way that makes my breath catch. "I've found a way to resolve everything," he says, the words deliberate, measured. "It's unconventional, but I think it's our shot. Our only shot." I blink, my mind racing to catch up. Resolve everything? The late-night calls, the whispered debts, the weight that's been crushing us both. Could he really mean all of it? "What are you talking about?" I press, leaning in, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "What kind of way?" The car ride to the club was suffocating, the kind of quiet that feels like it's pressing down on your chest, making every breath a little harder. Matthew's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white, and I could feel his tension radiating beside me, a silent storm I couldn't break through. I wanted to ask more, to demand answers about this unconventional solution he'd hinted at, but something in the set of his jaw told me to wait. So I did, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past, my heart thudding with a mix of dread and curiosity. When we finally arrived, the building loomed before us, an old brick structure tucked away in a part of town I'd never been to before. It didn't look like much from the outside, just a nondescript facade with a single heavy door that seemed out of place, like it belonged to another era. Matthew parked, his movements jerky, and for a moment he just sat there, staring at the entrance. Then without a word he got out, and I followed, my heels clicking on the uneven pavement as a chill crept up my spine. The air was thick with the scent of rain on asphalt, and I pulled my coat tighter around me as we approached. The door creaked as we pushed it open, a low, groaning sound that echoed in the stillness, and I stepped inside behind Matthew, my breath catching at the sudden shift. The interior was like stepping into a different world, a shadowy realm that felt both ancient and dangerous. Dim light spilled from a single chandelier hanging above, its crystals casting fractured glints across the room, barely illuminating the space. The air was heavy, thick with the acrid scent of cigar smoke that clung to everything, stinging my eyes and coating the back of my throat. In the center of the room stood a large polished wooden table, its surface gleaming under the faint light, surrounded by high-backed chairs. A few men sat there, dressed in dark suits, their faces obscured by the shadows at first, their low murmurs stopping the moment we entered. I felt their eyes on me, unseen but piercing, and my skin prickled with unease. Then a figure rose from the far end of the table, and my attention snapped to him. He was tall, imposing, a man in his late 40s with sharp, angular features that seemed carved from stone. His gray eyes were piercing, cutting through the dimness like a blade, and as he stepped forward, the light caught the hard lines of his face, making him look both regal and menacing. This had to be Victor. His presence filled the room, commanding attention without effort, and I felt a shiver run through me as he approached, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor with a deliberate, measured rhythm. My pulse quickened, and I couldn't look away, even as every instinct screamed at me to step back. He stopped just in front of me, closer than I expected, and I froze as his hand reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. His touch was warm but firm, a gesture that felt both intimate and possessive, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as his gaze held mine. "So, this is the one," he said, his voice low, smooth as velvet but laced with something darker, something that made my stomach twist. I didn't know what he meant, not yet, but the weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. I glanced at Matthew, desperate for some kind of explanation, some reassurance. He had taken a seat in a leather chair near the table, his posture rigid, his face unreadable in the flickering light. "You don't need to worry," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "If everything goes well, the debt will be forgiven." His words hung in the air, cryptic and heavy, and my confusion deepened, morphing into a cold, creeping dread. Before I could process what he meant, 2 other men approached from the edges of the room. They were burly, silent figures, their movements deliberate and synchronized, like they'd done this before. Their faces were hard, expression. I'm standing in the center of this dimly lit room, the air still thick with the lingering haze of cigar smoke, and I can feel every pair of eyes on me, boring into my skin like I'm some kind of prize on display. Victor, with his sharp, commanding presence, steps back just a fraction, his hand lingering near my face for a heartbeat longer than necessary before it falls away. His lips curve into a knowing smile, one that sends a shiver racing down my spine, and I can't tell if it's fear or something else entirely twisting in my chest. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure everyone can hear it, a frantic drumbeat echoing in the silence. My palms are slick with sweat, and I resist the urge to wipe them on my dress, not wanting to show even a flicker of weakness in front of these men. From the corner of the room, I feel the weight of Matthew's gaze, heavier than all the others combined. He's still seated in that leather chair, his posture stiff, almost unnaturally so, like he's holding himself together by sheer force of will. I turn my head just enough to meet his eyes, searching for something, anything, that might tell me what he's feeling. A hint of regret, a silent protest, some sign that he wants to stop this, whatever this is. But his face is a mask, stoic and unyielding, his hazel eyes giving nothing away. His hands are clenched tight on the armrests, the veins standing out against his knuckles, and I wonder if that grip is the only thing keeping him from breaking apart. Or maybe it's keeping him from reaching for me. How did we get here? The question loops through my mind, over and over, as I stand frozen under the scrutiny of strangers. I think back to those late-night talks, the ones where Matthew's voice would drop to a whisper, his words heavy with shame as he admitted he'd gotten in over his head with some dangerous people. Debts he couldn't pay, promises he couldn't keep. I remember the way he'd bury his face in his hands, the way I'd pull him close, telling him we'd figure it out together. But now, staring into the void of his expression, I realize this must be the way out he was so desperate to find. This moment, this room, these men. It's all part of some unthinkable bargain. And I'm the currency. My thoughts are interrupted as Victor shifts, his movement drawing my attention like a magnet. He gestures toward a side door across the room, a subtle tilt of his head that feels like a command. The two other men, the burly ones who've been hovering like silent sentinels, step forward as if on cue, their presence a looming threat I can't ignore. Victor's gray eyes lock onto mine for a moment, and there's something in them, a glint of anticipation maybe, that makes my stomach churn. "This way," he says, his voice smooth but firm, leaving no room for hesitation. I take a step forward, then another, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor, each sound reverberating in the oppressive quiet like a countdown to something I can't yet name. It feels like I'm moving through a dream, or maybe a nightmare, where every action is slow, deliberate, and yet completely out of my control. My legs feel heavy, like they're wading through water, but I keep going, following Victor's lead as the two men fall into step behind me. The room seems to stretch endlessly, the distance to that door growing longer with every breath, and yet I can't stop. I don't dare. I risk one last glance over my shoulder at Matthew, needing to see him, needing something to anchor me in this spiraling uncertainty. He's still there, still unmoving, but this time I catch the slightest nod, a barely perceptible dip of his chin. It's not reassurance, not really, but it's a plea, a silent urging to keep going, to see this through. My chest tightens at the sight, a mix of betrayal and resignation clawing at me, but I turn back before I can let myself falter. I can't afford to break now, not when I dawn. As I step through the side door Victor gestured toward, I find myself in a smaller, more intimate room that feels like a world apart from the smoky, cavernous space I just left. A single lamp with a red shade casts a warm, almost sinister glow over everything, bathing the room in a crimson haze that makes the shadows dance along the walls. The light is soft but heavy, like it's pressing down on me, amplifying every sensation, every thought. In the center of the room sits a plush velvet couch, its deep burgundy fabric inviting yet foreboding, as if it holds secrets of its own. Nearby, a small bar cart stands with crystal glasses glinting under the dim light, their edges catching the red glow like tiny, sharp flames. Heavy drapes cover the windows, shutting out the world beyond, creating a cocoon of isolation that feels both suffocating and strangely safe. The air here is different, thicker somehow, laced with a faint musk that mingles with the lingering trace of cigar smoke from the other room. Every detail seems deliberate, designed to pull me deeper into whatever is about to unfold. Victor and the two burly men follow me in, their presence a silent weight at my back. The door closes behind us with a soft click, a sound so final it sends a shiver down my spine. It's as if that small noise has severed any chance of turning back, locking me into this moment, this choice, or lack of one. My heart is a wild thing in my chest, pounding so fiercely I can feel it in my throat, in my fingertips. I stand there, frozen for a moment, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 regrets, but also a strange, unplaceable curiosity about what comes next. I've never been here before, not in this kind of situation, not with these kinds of stakes. And yet, there's a part of me, buried deep, that wonders if I've been heading toward this all along. Victor moves past me, his movements smooth and calculated, like a predator who knows he's already won. He gestures toward the couch, a silent command wrapped in that velvet-smooth tone of his, and I feel my body respond before my mind can catch up. I sit, the fabric of the couch soft and cool beneath me, a stark contrast to the heat building in my chest. The texture is almost too much, too real, grounding me in a moment I wish I could escape. The two men linger near the bar cart, their eyes on me, unreadable but intense, while Victor stands close, his presence towering, magnetic. I should resist, I tell myself. I should stand up, demand to leave, to see Matthew, to end this before it begins. But there's a pull in the air, a current I can't fight, and Victor's gaze, those piercing gray eyes, holds me in place as surely as if I were bound. What happens next feels like a betrayal I never imagined I'd commit, a line crossed that I can't uncross. I let myself be drawn into an act so intimate, so forbidden, that it feels like I'm shedding a piece of who I am with every passing second. At first there's resistance, a voice in my head screaming that this isn't me, that I'm better than this, that I owe Matthew more than this. But as Victor's commanding presence envelops me, as his voice murmurs low encouragements, that resistance begins to crumble. There's a surprising sense of power in surrendering, a liberation I didn't expect to find in such a dark moment. It's as if I'm reclaiming something, taking control in a situation where I thought I had none. My mind is a storm of conflicting emotions, guilt, shame, but also a strange, intoxicating thrill that I can't deny, no matter how much I want to. Every sensation is heightened, etched into my memory with painful clarity. The velvet of the couch shifts under me, its softness a cruel irony against the hardness of what I'm doing. Unfamiliar hands are warm against my skin, their touch both foreign and electric, sending shivers through me that I can't suppress. My breathing is uneven, ragged, a sound that fills the quiet room like a confession I can. As I step back into the main room, the air feels colder now, sharper, like it's slicing through the haze of what just happened. The dim light from the chandelier still casts its fractured glow across the space, but it seems harsher somehow, less forgiving. The men at the table barely acknowledge my return, their faces still half hidden in shadow, their low murmurs resuming as if I'd never left. I catch Victor's gaze for a fleeting moment, and he gives a curt nod to Matthew, a silent signal that whatever transaction took place is complete. My chest tightens at the gesture, a mix of relief and something heavier, something I can't quite name yet, settling into my bones. I see Matthew stand from his chair, his movements slow, almost mechanical, like he's a puppet whose strings are being pulled by an unseen hand. He approaches me, each step deliberate, and as he gets closer, I search his face for answers. There's relief there, etched into the softening of his jaw, the way his shoulders seem to loosen just a fraction. But there's something else, too. Something unreadable. Maybe guilt, maybe gratitude, or perhaps a blend of both that he can't express. His hazel eyes meet mine for a brief second, and I feel a pang in my chest, a silent question hanging between us that neither of us dares to voice. We don't speak as we turn toward the exit, the weight of the night pressing down on us like a physical force. The heavy door slams shut behind us with a resounding thud, echoing in my ears like a final judgment, and the night air hits my skin like a slap, cold and biting, snapping me back to reality. We walk to the car in silence, the gravel crunching under our feet, the sound unnervingly loud in the stillness of the early morning. Matthew's hand brushes mine as we move, a fleeting touch that sends a jolt through me. But he doesn't hold on. It's as if he's afraid to. Or maybe he thinks I'm the one who might pull away. I don't know what I'd do if he tried, and that uncertainty gnaws at me, a quiet ache that I can't shake. We reach the sedan, and I slide into the passenger seat, the leather cool against my skin, a stark contrast to the heat still lingering in my veins from earlier. Matthew gets in beside me, but he doesn't start the engine right away. We just sit there for a long moment, the silence between us thicker than the darkness outside. I stare at the dashboard, at the faint reflection of streetlights on the windshield, trying to anchor myself in something familiar, something safe. But nothing feels safe anymore, not after tonight. Finally, he turns the key, and the engine hums to life, a low rumble that fills the void where words should be. The drive home is quiet, the city lights blurring past us in streaks of gold and white, like fleeting memories I can't quite grasp. My thoughts swirl, a chaotic storm I can't control. I keep replaying the events of the night, the choices made, the lines crossed, but there's no regret in me, not really. Instead, there's this bizarre sense of accomplishment, a strange pride in knowing I've saved us from ruin. I did what I had to do, what I felt was necessary to protect our life together, to keep the shadow of debt and danger from swallowing us whole. It's a bitter kind of victory, one that leaves a metallic taste in my mouth. But it's a victory nonetheless. I glance at Matthew, his profile illuminated by the passing lights, and I wonder if he feels it too. This twisted sense of relief, this unspoken bond forged in the fire of sacrifice. The city fades into the quieter streets of our suburban neighborhood, the familiar shapes of modest houses coming into view, their windows dark and unseeing. As we pull into the apartment complex, the gravel of the parking lot crunching under the tires, Matthew finally breaks the silence. His voice is a whisper, so soft I almost miss it over the hum of the engine shutting off. "You saved us tonight," he says, and the words hit me like a wave, washing over the turmoil inside me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.